It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, one in, one out. It's the government's new plan to stop the smuggling gangs. Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron unveil a new pilot return scheme to tackle small boat crossings. The Prime Minister describes it as groundbreaking and says it'll start in the coming weeks.
With a united effort, new tactics and a new level of intent, we can finally turn the tables.
Coming up, we'll look at why so many people make that dangerous journey across the Channel and whether today's announcement will make any difference. Also ahead, 4 people are arrested in connection with a series of major cyber attacks that hit M&S, the Co-op and Harrods. I'll be chatting to an ethical hacker about what retailers can do to protect themselves next time. Plus, we'll hear from the police officers who were first on the scene of the Southport attack as they speak publicly for the first time about confronting and disarming the killer. And a second-class post slowdown with weekend deliveries for some Royal Mail services set to be scrapped. I'll be joined by the Federation of Small Businesses to hear what they make of the decision. All that to come and more here on the UK Tonight. Good evening. We begin tonight with the Prime Minister promising to turn the tables on the migrant crisis in the English Channel. Keir Starmer and the French President Emmanuel Macron today announced a new plan to send people who arrive on small boats back to France. It's being called a one-in, one-out pilot scheme. Migrants who cross the Channel on small boats to the UK can be detained and sent back. In return, Britain will grant asylum to an individual who is deemed to have a legitimate claim. The two leaders said the scheme will go ahead in a matter of weeks. Here's our political editor, Beth Rigby.
Britain's border force out this morning in the English Channel, intercepting yet another small boat and rescuing the people it's carrying. 79 more illegal migrants landing in Dover in a crisis that seems to have no end. Shortly after these migrants arrived in Britain, this man arrived in Downing Street for an Anglo-French summit with illegal migration top of the agenda. President Macron's the first European leader to come to the UK for a state visit since Brexit, so this is a massive symbolic moment. But today it's all about the politics. The Prime Minister really needs a win on small boats. President Macron, can you do a deal on small boats, sir? What these two leaders have agreed is to trial a limited returns deal where up to 50 migrants a week will be sent back to France. In return, Britain will take in the same number of migrants if they have links to the UK. It's expected to cost British taxpayers millions of pounds.
It's a pilot to break the model. That is the whole point of it. It is groundbreaking, and it's no wonder that for years British governments, previous governments, have been trying to secure a deal like this, a returns agreement like this, because all governments have realised just how important it is. And we've now been able to agree it. And we've agreed it because we have collaborated through serious diplomacy to get an outcome which is best for both of our countries.
But President Macron also using this moment to blame Brexit for Britain's worsening border problems.
I wouldn't want there to be an idea that we're not doing our job or we're wasting UK money. I want to remind you that when you put in £1, we put in €3, and so we're putting in a lot of money to defend the border. We sold a lie to the British people, which is a problem with Europe, but the problem has become Brexit.
The Prime Minister had every right to look pleased today because Brexit cast a long shadow over relations between London and Paris, but with some deft diplomacy, he's turned the page and he's actually got a real policy win here today. Because what he and President Macron have agreed is a real plan to try and create a deterrent to stop small boat crossings. Now, it will start off as a pilot. It will be only a fraction of the people crossing illegally that will be sent back to France. But there is a possibility that he can scale it up and make a real difference. And that really matters because migration is a top 3 voter priority. And if he doesn't fix this problem, it's going to really hurt him at the polls. Because the political threat is real. Polling today finds 4 out of 10 people planning to vote reform would consider switching to Labour if the number of small boat crossings were reduced.
I don't believe it'll work. I believe the numbers will be very limited indeed. And even if it did work, where's the advantage to us? This is Brexit Britain. We voted to take back control of our borders, not to accept a deal given to us by a French president.
This so-called deal will make no difference whatsoever. 44,000 illegal immigrants have crossed in the last year under Keir Starmer's watch, and his frankly pathetic returns deal will only see a paltry 50 illegal immigrants a week returned to France. That represents only 6% of those arriving.
The PM promised to drive down illegal migration, but a year into power, boat crossings are at a record high at this point of the year. There's a lot riding on today's policy if images like this are to be a thing of the past. Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Let's bring in our chief political correspondent, John Craig, who joins me now from Westminster. And John, Emmanuel Macron did utter the B word, didn't he? Brexit.
Not once, not twice, 3 times at least, I counted. First of all, he said that it was the problem was that since Brexit, there was no the UK doesn't have a migration returns agreement with the European Union. And then he came out with that very strong line about how the British people had been sold a lie. And he also talked about how Brexit had done the opposite of what the Brexiteers claimed, taking back control of the borders, made things worse. So I mean, he's referred to Brexit a few times during his visit over the last 3 days. He referred to it a little bit more obliquely during his speech to Parliament on Tuesday, but he really attacked the Brexiteers. I mean, we know the French and other Europeans are furious still about Brexit all those years later. And for this reason, there are some pitfalls ahead for the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister was putting a very brave face on it, using phrases like groundbreaking, breakthrough and so on, and saying it's all going to start in short order, he said, in a matter of weeks. But there could be problems ahead. There could be some sort of legal challenge in Europe, and also there's the question of cost of some of the ramping up of the security patrols and so on, and of course the European Union may not like this deal. I mean, there were questions at the news conference about what about countries like Spain and Italy and so on, who won't be very happy that the French have done a deal with the British, and they obviously would prefer a EU deal. That's not going to happen. And then there's the numbers. What was remarkable today was that there was no dispute, there was no disputing or challenging the numbers that have been around the last 24 hours or so, just 50 a week. 50 a week going back, and so that adds up to about 2,600 a year. And that's 1 in 17 migrants are going to be sent back, as Chris Philp and other opposition politicians have said. So 44,000, only a tiny fraction of them are going to be sent back. Expect to hear a lot more criticism of that. There was no mention of any numbers from either the President or the Prime Minister today. All the Prime Minister was talking about was this breakthrough deal and so on. But the numbers, critics will say, are absolutely tiny. And that's why critics are very sceptical about whether it's going to make a difference or not.
John, thank you very much indeed. Got some more numbers for you now, and they're not tiny. Around 21,000 people have arrived in the UK in small boats this year already. That's up almost 56% compared with the same period last year. Our Europe correspondent Adam Parsons has been out on the English Channel today, witnessing firsthand some of the tactics being used by the smuggling gangs.
These are the scenes the British government is desperate to stop. A small boat loaded with dozens of people setting off across the Channel. The French police didn't stop it leaving, but it was shadowed by this search and rescue vessel, here to observe, not obstruct. We follow the boat as it chugs slowly along the coast for an hour. And then it takes a surprise detour back towards the shore. A police vehicle comes to meet it. A helicopter arrives, but the boat never lands. Instead, 4 people, almost certainly part of the smuggling gang that arranged this crossing, jump out and wade back to the shoreline as those left on board resume their journey. The 4 who leapt off are met by the French police, but they're barely questioned, let alone arrested, and within a minute they've walked off towards the dunes. Behind them, the frail, packed, slow-moving boat is on its way to Britain.
The French authorities are well aware of the progress of this boat. We've seen the police watch it leave the beach. There was a helicopter above, and that search and rescue vessel is monitoring its progress. But they won't intercept it because they're too worried about all of those migrants falling into the water. So unless the boat itself fails, all of those people will be landing in Britain.
We have seen how the smugglers who operate along this coastline are well organised and act fast. French police rarely enter the water, and the smugglers exploit that fact. British politicians have demanded tougher action from France. The French say the UK needs to address the pull factors that attract migrants. So what is it that draws so many people from around the world to make this journey? Many here don't want to talk on camera, but they do see the UK as their best option.
I'm trying to go to Manchester. But let me tell you one thing, yeah, all these people here, any of them when they get to the UK, they will be literally getting the black job. Black job, that means a job where you don't pay any tax or whatever, you just go work illegally. This is what they're going to do.
On this one small boat, another 50 people to add to the tally of many thousands who have crossed the Channel so far this year. A tide of humanity that is proving very hard to stem. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Dunkirk.
As Adam described there, one of the reasons so many make that dangerous journey across the Channel is the so-called pull factor, or pull factors that make people want to live here in the UK. Sky News has been on patrol with a Home Office team which is targeting thousands of migrants believed to be working here illegally as food delivery drivers. Our West of England correspondent Dan Whitehead has this.
999 activated.
10 minutes in and the first mopeds are pulled over.
Just going to do a quick couple of checks on the vehicle, a couple of checks on your driver's licence now.
No insurance, but also a red flag for immigration.
Let you know from the start, you're under arrest for immigration detention. That's because I believe you're liable to be removed.
As leaders work out ways to stop arrivals, the Home Office says it's carrying out a blitz on the thousands of migrants already here, suspected of working illegally.
This is a real problem for you and your officers, isn't it?
It is a problem. We're tackling it. And the crackdown continues on preventing those who do not have the right to work in the UK.
Lunchtime, and as the deliveries get busy, so do immigration.
It seems to me that you're delivering food. You've got a Just Eat bag.
The driver claims he uses the bag for his own food. The officer isn't buying it.
You've got one arrest being made here, another delivery driver being questioned, and another inside the undercover van around the corner. What's interesting is that the officers tell me that when they make a crackdown like this, the messages on the WhatsApp group for the delivery drivers goes wild, and they all go to ground for a few hours.
It's on those same WhatsApp groups that many migrants can rent driver delivery accounts, enabling them to work straight away. Another problem is that right-to-work checks in the UK only apply to employees, not those self-employed in the rapidly growing gig economy, such as fast food delivery, something the government says it is sorting.
We've put a new part of the law into the Border Security Bill, which has gone through Parliament, which will extend our ability to fine them £60,000 per worker to gig economy, the gig economy sector when it becomes law later this year.
Uber Eats, Deliveroo and Just Eat told Sky News they're continuing to strengthen checks and remove anyone working illegally.
So why are you in ownership of a branded Just Eat bag?
I just got it because I use it for grocery bills.
8 arrests and 14 vehicles seized. As the arrivals by boat continue, the push for a solution seems ever harder. Dan Whitehead, Sky News in Bristol.
A couple of people invested in this issue right now. We're going to start with the former Director General of the Border Force, Tony Smith. Tony, good to see you. there's lots to discuss, of course, but let's focus on what Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron announced earlier on with this one-in, one-out pilot scheme. What do you think?
Evening, Matt. Well, so I think the first thing we need to do is kill this Brexit myth, Matt, because I worked in the Home Office during all of the negotiations under the Dublin Convention, Dublin 1, 2 and 3. These were the deals we did on who would, be responsible for considering an asylum application within the EU to stop asylum shopping. And we never, ever, hardly ever returned anybody to France, any failed asylum seeker to France under the system when we were in.
Just quickly, Tony, people look at the figures being worse this year already than any previous year, and they'll think maybe there is a correlation between post-Brexit Britain and immigration, illegal immigration going up.
Yes, but in terms of sending people back to France, he's right to say it's groundbreaking, Matt, because we didn't ever do that when we were in the EU. That's the point I'm making. And so, but I mean, in terms of the effect, if we're trying to stop the boats, I think that's what we're all trying to do, or at least reduce the numbers of crossings. From what I've seen of this, it's a very small pilot. It will only apply to 50 or so migrants a week. You've got pictures of yourself of today of hundreds arriving. Some days we get 1,000 arriving. So if you're a migrant considering this journey, the chances of you being picked to be one of the ones to be sent back to France is still very, very low. So I don't think the smugglers and the migrants will be quaking in their boots at the moment on this.
But Tony, let me come back in on that, because they're saying they want this to be a deterrent. The last time we talked deterrence was, of course, the Rwanda scheme, which never really happened. But we did see a deterrent effect of that, regardless of whether people were put on flights or not. Well, they weren't really, but there was a deterrent effect there.
Yeah, but I did support the Rwanda plan because that was a solution which was within our control. We had an agreement already with Rwanda to send people directly back there, and they would not be admitted into the UK asylum system at all. But here we're trying to do a deal with the French, and it's a deal that means that for every one person that we do manage to send back, we're going to take another person who currently is inadmissible to the UK. And when you do the maths, Matt, at the moment, it's not 1 for 1, it's 1 for about 17.
It is, but it's a pilot scheme. So if it works, they'll expand it out. If you take it to its logical conclusion, everybody arriving illegally goes straight back to France, and someone in France who perhaps does have a right to apply comes back. That would be a deterrent, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I've always said Plan A, Matt. And when somebody started a safe third country agreement with France would be the best option of all. My concern is whether this deal actually will get off the ground in the first place, because Mr. Macron's got a bit of homework to do with the EU when he gets home, because I don't think the EU Commission are going to like this very much, nor are another member state. And it says it's subject to the legal framework being in place in the announcement, which is the first thing. But even then, will the numbers involved in this be a sufficient deterrent to stop people coming? I hope it is, Matt. Don't get me wrong. I hope it is, because, and it's a step in the right direction. But I'm afraid at the moment, as we speak, I am not confident that it's going to make much of an impact on the numbers, which is what we really want to see.
Tony, Labour came into power as government saying it was part of their manifesto they would smash the gangs. Is this going to do that, or is there another thing they should be doing?
Well, I think it was a little bit naive just to smash the gangs, Matt. We've had the National Crime Agency, Immigration Enforcement, a number of agencies already trying to smash the gangs before this government came into power. They have appointed a new Border Security Commander, and I wish him well in doing that. And they've extended some powers, which will make it easier, certainly in the UK, to stop human smuggling. But on the continent and beyond, Matt, and I've got some experience of working around the world with other border agencies, you have to have their cooperation on the ground. It's no good us saying we're going to send off our officers over to various countries to start arresting people and doing them under the criminal justice system. You can disrupt them, so it's a right thing to do. But Matt, I've always said we need a removals deterrent. Now, if this is it, and we are saying we can now remove people to France, so we've got a bit of a removals deterrent. But I was much more keen on the Rwanda plan, and unfortunately that never took off. And so we'll never know whether that would have worked or not. But that was within our control, and unfortunately it's no longer in place. So we'll never know, I suppose, man.
Well, although plenty of people said it cost an awful lot of money as well, Tony, that one. You're right, though. We will never know. The government has decided to move in a different direction, of course. Tony Smith, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Joining me next to discuss the issue is the Chief Executive of Care for Calais, Steve Smith. Evening to you, Steve. Same
Hello,
first
Matt.
question to you. What do you think about this one in, one out announcement by the Prime Minister and the President today?
Well, our concern is it sounds like something of a gimmick. The real problem with it is, as far as we're concerned, is that these are people, not numbers. It strikes us that, it's almost like moving pawns around on a chessboard. It's like a buy one, get one free deal, or a send one, get one free deal. These are people who've been through the most appalling terrors that you can imagine, be it war, conflict, persecution, torture, modern-day slavery, you name it. They're coming to UK in absolute desperation. They're coming to the EU in absolute desperation. And Tony Smith has already said it, the numbers just don't stack up. So Le Monde today suggested that only 6% would be affected. So how do you choose that 6 out of 100 that are sent back to France?
Yeah, but again, the same point remains, 6 out of 100, but it's a pilot scheme. So as with any pilot scheme, if they get the idea that this might work, they'll expand it out, won't they? And it then becomes more of a deterrent, potentially.
Well, they might expand it out, but if they're able to do that sort of processing, they're able to process the people that come here, and they're suggesting at the moment that those will be individuals with family already in UK, so it's rather like the existing family reunification scheme. If they're able to process those, and they're able to process the 6 out of 100 that would go back, then they're able to process in other ways. And we suggest that processing should be done offshore as part of a system of safe routes. This is what's done with Ukrainians. This is what's done with Hong Kong Chinese. And you don't see either of those nationalities using small boats or drowning in the Channel.
Steve, I know you talk about the reasons why people come here, and many of them are fleeing persecution in Syria or South Sudan or, war zones and that kind of thing. But the fear is, amongst a lot of people, is not all of them are doing that. Some are purely economic migrants.
Well, our experience is, you're right, there are a few that will be economic migrants. Yes, of course. But our experience is that that is not the majority by any way, shape or form. We see people who are experiencing the most appalling circumstances. I was talking to a guy only a couple of weeks ago. This is a typical example. He was Nigerian. He was a politician. He was from the opposition party. He came on holiday to Britain with his family, 4 kids, wife and 4 kids. It was while he was here that he was told he was on a death list. 2 of his colleagues had already been assassinated, and he was next on the list if he went home. He found himself living in a hotel room with his entire family for months on end while his claim for asylum was processed. I could tell you hundreds of stories like this. We see people like this every single day.
Steve, back to the gangs and those people, for whatever reason, but as you say, the majority you believe to be fleeing genuine issues and therefore deserve to apply for asylum in the genuine way. How would you stop these criminal gangs? Because they're the real baddies here. How do you stop them doing what they're doing?
Well, this whole ethos of smash the gangs, I can't see how it will work. If you need to smash the gangs, you smash the business model. Why can't you smash the gangs in the current way? Because the leaders of those gangs are not necessarily based in the EU. They certainly aren't based in the UK. They're based in countries that we don't even have intelligence or policing agreements with. When people are arrested, because this is a networked organisation, it's not a big hierarchical thing like a massive organised crime gang, because it's networked, and there are many, people often compare it with whack-a-mole. You bang one on the head and another one batches up. And it wouldn't surprise me at all that, that's what's going to happen. There are limited costs involved in setting up. There are no barriers to entry. It's really easy to get into this. And as I said before, the smuggling gangs are not driven by huge overarching gangs that are going to be easily intercepted and taken down.
The final question, Steve, is there is that perception that the UK in some way is a soft touch, and also we gave the language of English to the world, and a lot of people speak that language outside their own, and that's another reason why they want to come here as well, because they speak the lingo. You can understand why, for whatever reason, people want to come here and pass through Greece, Italy, France, whatever it happens to be, and come straight to our border?
You can understand that. Certainly speaking the language is one of the aspects of this, but people who pass through, the majority do not pass through those countries and come here because, let's take Germany, for example. Germany took 270,000 asylum seekers last year. Spain took 166,000. Italy and France, which you mentioned, roughly 159,000 each. All of those exceeded UK in the numbers they took in. Our experience is that those coming here don't understand our benefit system, don't think the streets are paved with gold, but you're right, speaking English is a key driver. But also because of our colonial past, we're seen as a mother country by some, we're seen as a compassionate country, a country with the right humanitarian law and order system. And that drags people, of course it does, because they want fairness, they want safety. And, you know, we can't ignore the fact that we've been involved in various wars over the last 20 years. Afghanistan, Iraq, I'm a veteran myself. I spent time in Iraq. I've seen what drives people out. You know, I'm not just the seeing what happens on the beach. I saw what happened at the start point of this, which many people haven't, which is why often these people are reduced to statistics and they're not. We can't abrogate our responsibilities for those that supported us in places like Iraq and especially Afghanistan. And I'm shocked that the two legal routes for coming out of Afghanistan, the safe routes to come out of Afghanistan have been closed down in the last couple of days. That's extraordinary. All that's going to do is drive more people to take more desperate measures and end up with the smugglers coming across the channel. It's absurd.
Steve Smith, appreciate your time. Once again, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Matt.
Still to come. Here on the UK Tonight, 4 people have been arrested in connection with those cyber attacks on UK retailers like M&S, the Co-op, and even Harrods. Will have all the details. Plus, we hear from the officers who were first on the scene of those Southport stabbings last year, when those 3 little girls were killed, as they speak publicly for the first time. And a warning that Iran poses a significant threat to people living here in the UK.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Now, 4 people have been arrested over their suspected involvement in major cyber attacks targeting Marks & Spencer, the Co-op and Harrods. Police say the individuals are aged between 17 and 20. Sky's Adele Robinson is with me now in the studio. Evening to you, Adele. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, well, these are the first arrests that the National Crime Agency have made since that large-scale cyber attack on those 3 big high street names, M&S being the most impacted, effectively. The NCA, the National Crime Agency, described these arrests as a significant step in their investigation, an investigation that they describe as being one of their highest priorities now. We know that M&S, of course, was pretty much brought to its knees a few months ago. Shelves were bare. The online app was almost completely down, effectively. It's not quite back to normal, but it's nearly there. Towards the end of May, end of July, I should say, it should be completely back up and running. But the effect was huge. It was, I think, estimated that it was up to £300 million in operating profit that they lost this year. And at the time, the market value of M&S was wiped by £750 million, it's estimated. And then, of course, there's the Co-op and Harrods in the days afterwards, which were targeted, although to a lesser extent. So these 4 arrests are significant. 3 male teens, as you mentioned, from West Midlands and London, and then one 20-year-old woman. The males are aged between 17 and 19. One's a 17-year-old who's from the West Midlands, another is a 19-year-old man from London, and another is a 19-year-old Latvian man who lives in the West Midlands as well. Now, they're being questioned on suspicion of a number of different offences, including Computer Misuse Act offences, blackmail, money laundering, and participating in activities of an organised crime group. We've had a statement from the NCA's National Cybercrime head of the National Crime Unit, saying, since these attacks took place, specialist NCA cybercrime investigators have been working at pace, and the investigation remains one of the agency's highest priorities. Today's arrests are a significant step in that investigation, but our work continues alongside partners in the UK and overseas to ensure those responsible are identified and brought to justice. So these arrests, I think, demonstrate progress in an investigation that's likely to be long and complex.
Certainly will. Adele, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's get more on this now. Rob Shapland is an ethical hacker and cyber awareness trainer. Good to see you again, Rob. Listen, we can't now talk about the specifics of this, given there have been arrests made. But in terms of retailers, famous retailers, where are their weaknesses?
Yeah, well, this one was interesting because although most companies are vulnerable to lots of different cyber attacks, the way they got in with this one was through the service desk. So they phoned up the service desk pretending to be an employee and asked for the password to be reset. And this is kind of a unique method. It's not something we've seen very much before. Most hackers you think of, they come in for the technical means, like you see in the movies. But in this way, they were able to pretend to be a staff member, perhaps by putting pressure onto the service desk team member, or maybe even researching the people they were pretending to be and finding out information they could use to convince that service desk person they were actually the person they're saying they were.
Is this what's called social engineering then?
That's right. Yeah, it is social engineering. That's what I do as a job, so I know exactly how it works. I've done the exact same thing they did against service desks, against loads of companies myself, and it's surprisingly effective. It nearly always works, which is why I wasn't surprised when I saw this method had been used.
What kind of tricks do you employ to get the information out of service desks that you need?
So one of the common ones is to pretend to be someone very high up in the company and to say, like, I'm just about to go into a meeting, really important board meeting, I've forgotten the password, I need it right now. And if they say, well, we'll need to send it to your email or we'll need to speak to someone else first, you just keep laying on the pressure and say, no, I'm about to go in right now, I need it this second. And normally, even if the procedure is that you have to do other checks, they'll crumble in the face of that authority or that urgency. So you use social engineering techniques like those to try and convince them to bypass those normal things they do to check.
So it's almost like the bigger the lie, weirdly, the more believable it is. The more audacious hackers are, the more likely they are to get the information out of people.
Yeah, exactly. And I recently have been trying out the voice cloning software that you can use as well, and hackers are known to use this as well. So you take a 10-second sample of someone's voice, create a replica. So I could easily just be recording your voice now, 2 minutes later have a replica of it, and then use it to pretend to be you. So you imagine in most firms, the CEO or the CFO have videos on YouTube, they have podcasts, all sorts of stuff, very easy to get a voice sample. Now phone the service desk, playing the person's actual voice, that's going to be a lot more likely to work. And I don't want to give the hackers ideas. I'm sure they're already thinking of it, but that's going to make it even more easy in future to be able to do these kind of attacks.
It's terrifying, Rob. Look, if you sample my voice, it's going to get you nowhere at Sky News. I'm not taken seriously by anybody. But I can see how that would work with the advent of AI. Rob, really appreciate you sharing that insight. Slightly terrifying, but interesting as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight, a warning that the UK is facing an increasing and unpredictable threat from Iran. Plus, the police officers who confronted the Southport killer speak publicly for the very first time. And a shake-up at the Royal Mail as the service is given the green light to scrap second-class post on Saturdays. A parliamentary watchdog has warned that the UK faces a rising and unpredictable threat from Iran, and the government must do more to stop it. The Intelligence and Security Committee also says the threat of physical attacks by Iran on people living in this country has increased significantly since 2022. Tehran has rejected the committee's findings, describing the report as politically motivated and hostile. Our home editor, Jason Farrell, has more now.
Iran's supreme leader 5 days ago in a rare public appearance. Today's report describes Iran as unpredictable, with a risk appetite, willing to use assassination on UK soil as an instrument of state policy. Dissidents and journalists have been targeted, one of them Seema Sabet, forced to take protection after security services discovered a plot to kill her. Her former colleague, Pouria Zarati, was stabbed last year.
We are dealing with the state, and dealing with the state means that whatever measures you take, they could be steps ahead of you. I mean, they are a terrorist state. They don't mind killing their opponent or journalists or anyone who is shedding light on the truth. And that was my only sin.
The report by the Intelligence and Security Committee says the Iran threat should not be underestimated. It is persistent and crucially unpredictable. There have been at least 15 attempts at murder or kidnap against British nationals or UK-based individuals since the beginning of 2022. It says the threat of physical attack on individuals is on a broadly comparable level with Russia.
Should the average person in the street be worried about this?
Yes, because the attacks on individuals here, the indiscriminate nature and recklessness of them could involve innocent bystanders, and that's the concern. And I think our security have been very good at thwarting 15 attacks over the last few years, but that doesn't mean that these won't continue.
In the past, there's been visible security in response to Iranian threats, such as here at Iran International's offices in West London. Dissidents are a key target, so too Jewish and Israeli interests in the UK.
The report is critical of the government's understanding of Iran, its lack of expertise and strategy. It doesn't say whether Iran's Revolutionary Guard should be prescribed as a terrorist organisation, but it does suggest that it's time for the government to make up its mind on that matter.
It's a terrorist organisation. Their operation in the UK shows a terrorist organisation is behind what they're doing, and why there hasn't been a proper response to stop them.
The Iranian embassy told us the Islamic Republic of Iran condemns the continued weaponisation of unfounded intelligence assessments to justify hostile policies. It urges the UK to refrain from further disseminating false information that damages bilateral relations and regional stability. The government says it has and will continue to take action, wherever necessary, to protect national security. Jason Farrell, Sky News.
The police officers who were first to arrive on the scene of the Southport murders have described how they managed to disarm the attacker. He killed 3 young girls and attempted to murder 10 others at a dance class last summer. The 3 officers who confronted him join a list of 70 officers nominated for tonight's National Police Bravery Awards. Our crime correspondent Martin Brunt has the details.
It was a fight that began in a shop. The attacker had a knife. Eventually, it spilled out onto the street.
You could see they were grappling and they were just saturated in blood.
That's when PC Nicola Crabb arrived. Armed only with a Parva pepper spray, she then grappled with the suspect.
There was a lot of struggling. I remember screaming lots. I don't know where the knife is. Drop the knife. Stop struggling. Stop resisting.
QJ, we need more units here now, please.
PC Crabb managed to restrain the knife man until colleagues arrived to arrest him.
QJ, we need air ambulance, please. One male stabbed to the neck. Please.
It's what I'm paid to do. It's what I'm here for. And if I didn't, then I should be questioning whether or not I wear the uniform.
PC Crabb is one of 70 officers from across the country who are nominated for tonight's Police Federation National Bravery Awards. They include those who confronted and disarmed the Southport killer, Axel Rudakabana. That day last summer, many officers raced to the children's dance class in Southport. These are the officers who got there first.
There was maybe 25 adults, and all of them were looking at me, and all of them had this look of terror and fear.
I identified the suspect at the top of the stairs, bloodied knife in his hand. So I thought, this is going to go 2 ways. He's going to listen to us, or he's going to fight with us and try and stab us. So again, me and Greg formed a solid wall with our shoulders walking up the stairs so he couldn't get past us.
By then, the suspect had already fatally injured 7-year-old Elsie Stankham, Alice da Silva Aguirre, aged 9, and BB King, who was 6, and he'd tried to kill 10 others.
I ran in for the safety of my fellow officers, just to make sure that they were okay. Just going off pure adrenaline, really.
All that bravery and bravado that he must have summoned up to attack innocent, defenceless children, he lost that straight away and he threw the knife down.
Axel Rudakabana was arrested by the officers and handed over to colleagues. He was jailed for life. And the judge said if he hadn't been stopped, he would have killed all 26 of the children. On Brighton Beach, police search for a vulnerable missing teenage girl. And they spot her 50 metres out in the cold sea, fighting to stay afloat. For the officers, there was only one option.
We could see that she was starting to struggle with the cold and the tide, and she started to dip underneath the water. And at that point, we knew we needed to do something, and that was that we needed to get in the water and swim out to her.
I don't think it's in the blood of any police officer to watch somebody at risk or somebody needing help and not do something. When you're in the sea itself and it's pitch black, you don't even know where the bottom of the sea is. It's terrifying, and I can only imagine how the female was feeling as well at the time.
The girl, a mental health patient, was rescued, and she recovered from her ordeal. They put their own lives at risk and saved the life of another. Martin Brunt, Sky News.
Next, the Royal Mail is set to scrap the delivery of second-class post on Saturdays and alternate weekdays as part of a series of major reforms. Communications regulator Ofcom says the proposals reflect the shifting importance of the postal service, with fewer letters being sent. Craig Bowmont is Executive Director at the Federation of Small Businesses and is here with me in the studio. What do small businesses think about this then?
Well, they're disappointed, but they're not surprised because this has been consulted on and floated. And actually, the Royal Mail tried to get rid of the universal service obligation for first class first and was stopped by ministers. So this is not as bad as that, but it's not good. It is a serious reduction, a drastic reduction in the postal service, a critical British service. So while going from, at the moment, 6 days a week, for 1 week it'll be 3 days. But for the next week, it'll only be 2 days, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
So if you miss that Thursday, you've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday before it'll get to your customer. And that's really going to hit a lot of people who do use letters, but they also use the letter format to send small parcels through.
Yeah.
Small businesses really love.
If you're a customer like I am, I tend to be the one paying for postage. So why don't they just get the customer to pay? Sure, it's more expensive these days, but for first class.
Well, they can, but the cost of first class in 2022 was 85p. The cost for a second class stamp right now is 87p. So in 3 years' time, in 3 years, we are already paying first class rates for a second class service. And now it's going to get a lot worse. So I think if you did do that, your products get more expensive, so you'll sell less. Your deliveries are already being squeezed, and you'll have an inflationary aspect to this, because if prices go up across the economy, again, small businesses will have to increase their prices to cope. Yeah, the consumer will have to pay for that, and that's not good for anyone. And the higher inflation means, as you know, interest rates don't go where they should be, and the economy kind of shrinks a bit. This is a real shrinkage of economic activity. Now, we should be going from Ofcom and the government about how to get growth. This is going the other direction.
And this is all because deliveries are privatised. There's meant to be more competition in the market. So again, people watching this say, well, why don't they just use one of those other delivery services? I could list them. There'll be some favourites and some that people can't stand, and there's plenty of them. Yeah. But why don't they just go to a different service?
Well, the cost is 4 times more if you do that. And if you add to that things like often an insurer of a small business will only insure if they use a reputable service, which is defined as the Royal Mail, often named as such. So suddenly your costs go up 4 times and you can't insure your package anymore. And so you can't, if something goes missing, you're in trouble. So we've been speaking to small businesses today. I can, if I'm allowed to name one, a fantastic little jeweller's called, the House of Alyssa Smith.
Okay.
And she creates these beautiful silver things, and in they go into the 2.5 centimetre wide padded envelope.
Yeah.
And now she's looking at that going, OK, how do I make my business work? And it's fantastic. And she does all the right things in the business, and then suddenly her business gets hit with an extra charge, and that doesn't seem fair.
With the Royal Mail wanting to do this, could they be more progressive in other ways? Because, like you say, there are sort of letter sizes, but if someone like her with her jewellery is only posting something yay big, then surely that would be cheaper.
Yes, and actually there's things like they have this massive discounted rate for huge deals for bulk mail, and that's one area where we think they could make some serious savings. Maybe make that delivered less. It's less important mail. It's normally something that you send an advert to 1 million people. So if that takes longer, I don't see that as a particular problem. But we're worried about cards, birthday cards, Christmas cards. We're worried about small packages that we've mentioned.
But people don't send cards like they used to anyway, do they? They'll just send you. And I know people do. I mean, you know,
I do.
I'm the lazy one who doesn't like Christmas cards. But you know, not really. You can do it electronically these days.
Not even to your mum?
Electronically.
OK.
Real flowers, electronic card.
Very good. Well, yeah, and so I think that, if you talk to the card industry, they're really concerned about this. This is their business, and you see card shops still functioning very well. But you need to rely on a good postal service. But it isn't just those. It's the deliveries, it's letters. A lot of business is still done by letter. So something like 60% of small businesses say that they use a letter once a month or more for their business. 25% say the postal service is core to how they run the business. It is still happening. Digital has not replaced actual in real life. One sector of business we haven't talked about is raw materials. So if you're making small deliveries to the consumer, you may be ordering your raw materials in. And the second-class diminution hits first-class and parcels as well, and all the targets are falling. So we're ending up with less trust and less reliability, and that's the problem.
Craig, really appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Coming up on the UK Tonight, is Morgan Gibbs-White set for a move to Tottenham? Certainly looks like it. We'll have your sport, including the latest transfer rumours, next.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
All alcohol products, not just wine, will have labels warning of liver disease and the link to fatal cancers.
Is it crazy? It's an industry worth around €14 billion a year. That's why Italy sees this Irish plan as such a threat. It's always instructive and occasionally entertaining to hear what Donald Trump has to say on the issue of Brexit.
She's got her own way of doing it, that's okay.
The job takes me to every corner of this island.
The rioting stemmed from a horrific daytime stabbing attack at a primary school in the city centre.
The scale of the rioting and the destruction it caused is pretty much unprecedented here in Dublin. Jerry, any comments on the judge's decisions? Do you feel vindicated, Jerry? This is the end, the somewhat chaotic end, of a 52-day trial.
Micheál Martin could be set to head back to government with the Taoiseach Simon Harris.
Are you confident that you can now return as Taoiseach?
I'm cautiously optimistic and excited.
A mystery press conference hastily called. Leo Varadkar strode out and didn't disappoint.
I am resigning as President and Leader of Fine Gael effective today.
The people here sometimes feel they're somewhat neglected by the Irish government, to the extent that this place is sometimes known as the Forgotten County.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks, but none have ever been found.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland. Sky News, get the full story first.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force. It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Time for some sport now. David Garrido's here with me in the studio. Good to see you as always, David. It does feel like the Premier League is starting to gear up again, people back in training, and some transfers being done. Spurs, busy day for them, a surprising day, actually.
Yeah, Spurs famed for the late transfer, aren't they? Especially in the summer windows. We're used to them sort of trying to, play that game of brinkmanship. Not the case right now, especially because they've got a new boss, Thomas Frank. They're doing business. They've triggered the release clause to sign Nottingham Forest midfielder Morgan Gibbs-White, England international. £60 million. He's one of the reasons that Forest had such an exceptional season. They're playing in Europe next campaign. 7 goals, 8 assists in the Premier League. So the fact that they've triggered this release clause means that Spurs can liaise directly with this player. They can effectively cut Forest out and say, right, do you want to come? Here are the terms, and you do the deal. But before then, yesterday, it also agreed a £55 million fee with West Ham for their midfielder Mohamed Kudus. Bit of an underwhelming campaign for him last season, but clearly a very talented player.
He's classy.
He is, and it was more really reflective of West Ham's struggles and, you know, the transition between Julian Lopetegui and Graham Potter, and he doesn't seem to figure in a Graham Potter system. So what that means is, add those two together, Spurs could be spending £150 million in just a few days, which is unheard of if you are a Spurs fan. But as I say, the new coach getting the backing.
And what about Arsenal?
Arsenal doing business as well. We knew about this one, but it's now confirmed. Christian Norgard from Brentford, £50 million in sort of 10 million up front, 5 million in add-ons. But also, and this is significant, Arsenal women have had a world record bid of more than £1 million accepted by Liverpool for their 20-year-old Canadian forward Olivia Smith. The current transfer record in the women's game is $900,000 that Chelsea paid Naomi Girma for Naomi Girma from San Diego Wave. Very talented young player, 7 goals in the WSL last season. So Arsenal could be about to break a record there. So we will see if those deals do indeed go through, and plenty more making the sporting headlines this evening.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Sorry, I just have a German passport. Hopefully I can convince them and show them and prove them that I'm proud to be the English manager.
For only the 3rd time in history, the FA have turned to a foreign manager to take charge of the men's England team. Thomas Tuchel follows in the footsteps of Sven-Göran Eriksson.
If we don't do results, of course, they will try to hang.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Thanks a lot, David. Time for a look now at the weather.
The ideal atmosphere, whatever the altitude. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
The next few days look mostly dry, sunny, with heatwave conditions developing widely. Expect a largely fine and very warm evening tonight, but the blustery northwest of Scotland looks grey and damp. That drizzly rain will move offshore tonight, leaving most places dry, clear and muggy, but there'll be some fog and low cloud around. Western parts look most at risk. Any cloud and fog will lift tomorrow morning to leave almost unbroken sunshine, but some Irish sea coasts will stay a bit grey. It'll be widely very warm, hot for inland parts of England, Wales and eastern Scotland.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
That is all from me and from the UK Tonight team. You can catch up on all the highlights on our webpage. Up next, With the World, it's Yalda Hakim, of course. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.